This is the last present I will ever give you.
My husband shoves divorce papers to me.
I've decided to marry someone else, so thank you for being a cash dispenser until now.
The guy I have been with for so many years turns out to be a horrible person. This is a story of my revenge. My name is Jessica. I'm turning 50 this year. In fact, tomorrow is a little special day. I've been living in debt for a long time and will finally finish paying it off. My husband Lance and I have worked really hard together. We got married 20 years ago. I was 30 and he was 35. He ran a liquor store that he inherited from his parents who had passed away. I, on the other hand, was an office worker. We met through an acquaintance and started dating with marriage in mind. I had one concern back then. What if he asked me to run the store with him? I was working as a financial consultant who advised on insurance and investment to individual and corporate clients at the time. I was getting paid better than average 30-year-olds and loved my job. I was studying for certification to take my career to the next level. When he proposed to me, he said,
I know you have been working hard to get the certification. I want to support you in any way I can. I have enough stuff at the store, so I can manage it myself. You should pursue your dreams.
His assurance was the catalyst for my decision to marry him. He was benevolent and always on my side. I truly wanted to build a life with such a man. As we agreed in the beginning, he focused on his business, and I focused on my work. We thought that our marriage was going well. About a year into it, he went to work and I was spending my day off at home. When I was vacuuming under the bed, it caught a lot of papers. It had been less than 6 months since we moved in. I wondered why there was such clutter. I picked up a crumpled piece of paper and opened it. The header in bold letters jumped into my eyes. Reminder of payment? The total amount of the debt owed in Lance's name was $200,000. 200,000? Wait, it's not 2,000, is it? My head started spinning. Why did he hide such a large amount of debt from me? I questioned him as soon as he got home that day. What is this debt? What's going on?
No, it's not what you think. It was left to me by my parents.
The debt was not personal, but rather on his liquor store. It was made by his parents, and when he took over the business, it also came along. It was secured by the land and the house we lived in, so he had no intention to renounce the inheritance. I understood that it was not his personal debt, but it was not something that could be left unattended. But this is a payment reminder. Aren't you paying back every month?
I am, but sales fluctuate from month to month. Sometimes I can't pay them back during the slow month. I have to pay my stuff first, so I've asked them to wait. That's when the letter came.
At first, his opinion sounded to make sense, but it was definitely not a good idea to delay payment. The letter included the words final notice.
I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to freak out. Don't worry though. Business is on track and we haven't been evicted from the house, right?
That's true, but... I looked at him anxiously. Then he mentioned something unexpected.
If you're so worried, why don't you help me pay off? You're making quite a lot, aren't you?
Huh? I wasn't comfortable with where he was going. It was not my store.
A husband and a wife are supposed to help each other. My debt is also yours.
That's a bit sudden.
Are you okay if my store went out of business? Many people would suffer if it was gone, you know.
I guessed. He was right. His store had become an indispensable part of the community. It was located in the suburbs, where there weren't many shops or supermarkets around. He was also selling fresh foods, such as meat and fish, and offered a home delivery service. I visited the shop several times, and it was always busy. Some customers stated that they were so grateful to have it in the neighborhood.
Please, honey, I'll be focused on keeping my business rolling. Please help me pay off my debts.
I respected the way he took his work seriously and devoted himself. I didn't want to see his store disappear. I didn't want that to happen for sure. Being married means that we support each other at all times. If he was struggling, it seems only natural for me to help him. Okay, I will pay back as much as I can every month from my salary. You can concentrate on managing the store. I could help financially, but only he could run it. I was happy that he relied on me above all else. However, it was the beginning of a change in him. About 3 years had passed since I took over his debt. He often came home late. What were you doing till this late? You reek of alcohol.
I just had a few drinks with my customers. Honey, did you make a payment this month?
For some reason, he sounded condescending. I did last week. Why?
My store depends on you. You'd better keep paying on time.
Whenever he got drunk those days, he gave me an order. I had taken it as nonsense from a drunkard, but it started to prick my nerves when he did it repeatedly. He made it sound like it was normal for me to pay back his debt.
By the way, Matt has a third kid now. I envy him.
Matt was his friend from high school. He had his own business, just like Lance. His wife also worked in the store with him. I've been wanting to talk to you about that. I told him what I had been keeping to myself. Don't you think it's time for us to start a family? His reaction was very cold.
What? Baby? My business has just started to picking up, and we are still in debt. How can we be so irresponsible?
The debt was his. I held back my annoyance. Matt has 3 children now, right? We can manage one too.
His parents are still well, and his wife works in the store. They are different from us.
I couldn't counter that. I always thought that I would have children when I got married. My dream was crushed easily. So, until I pay off all your debts, we can't have a baby?
Well, I guess that's how it's going to be. If you make a lot of money and pay off the debts quickly, I'll think about it.
His mean smile disgusted me, but I felt impatient to pay off the debts as soon as possible. How blind I was! Even though it was an irrational demand, I was too occupied with the thought of starting a family and didn't even think about it. From then on, I worked tirelessly for Lance. I actively obtained qualifications, took promotional exams, and secured a salary increase. I started earning much more than women my age. I even made advanced payments, but the debt didn't disappear so easily. I turned 40 before I knew it, and had to give up on having children. I thought to myself that I still had my husband and that he was enough. He relied on me, and I could do anything for him. As long as I still believed that, I remained happy. Lance started coming home later and later as the days went by. He sometimes came back in the morning.
I was working in the store, and it was morning when I realized it. I had to go out with a customer, and the next thing I know, the sun is out.
When I saw him working so hard to protect the store, I felt that I had to do my best as a wife too. We were on the same boat, selling for a better future together. The months and years went by, and the day finally arrived. I was going to make the last payment the next day. For the sake of the debt, I had to pass on all sorts of luxuries. I didn't need to do so anymore. I could finally spend my hard-earned money the way I wanted. I realized that ever since I got married, I had been thinking too much about money. We had never taken a vacation or even dined at a nice restaurant. We were still in our 50s. I hoped to finally enjoy such things from then on. On the day the last payment was due, I took a day off. I cooked a more luxurious dinner than usual, prepared a bottle of wine, and even baked Lance's favorite chocolate cake. I wanted to celebrate a debt-free life together. When he came home from work, I put them on the table and said, "Finally! It feels like it's been a long time, but last 20 years have gone by so fast, haven't they, honey?" He was trembling and kept his head down. I wondered if he was crying from happiness. As I was stunned, he started cracking up in a way that I had never heard before. "Ha ha ha! What the hell is going on? Are you okay?" The man who was supposed to be my husband declared the most outrageous thing.
"You are dismissed now. I'm grateful to you for the past 20 years. Thanks to you paying off all my debt, I'm a free man. Great job. I don't need you anymore."
What are you talking about? I seriously had no idea what he meant. Then he took something out of his bag.
"This is my last present to you."
Petition for divorce in bold letters stabbed my eyes. He proudly continued.
"I've decided to marry someone else, so you're no longer of any use to me. Thanks for being my cash dispenser until now."
You're getting remarried? Have you been cheating on me all this time? Thinking back, he always came home late saying work or socializing. While I was working hard to pay off his debt, he was... No way. His expression remained smug.
"I will never be that unfaithful. I have already found the next potential wife. I want to divorce you and marry her. That's why I have been waiting for you to clear my debt."
Tears began to well up in my eyes at the cruelty. I was even more saddened by the blurry view of the feast I had prepared.
"So get the hell out of here."
He handed me the divorce papers. My blood started boiling faster than I could feel sadness or despair. "Okay, but you won't regret it." I squeezed out my voice.
"No, I won't. Why would I regret divorcing an old hag like you?"
An old hag? If I were her, he would be an old fart. I wondered if he thought he was still young. His misconception was so ridiculous that I regained my composure and accepted the divorce papers. "I'm going to take this with me for now, and I'll be in touch." I packed my belongings and left the house. How could my 20 years of marriage come to such an easy end? I finally shed tears of emptiness and frustration after being alone, and then asked my attorney for a divorce agreement and had him send it to Lance. I also requested and received a report on his bride-to-be. Soon after that, I received a call from him.
"Hey, Jessica! What the hell is this document?"
He sounded furious. I could imagine his face turning bright red even over the phone. I was very calm in contrast to him. "That is a divorce agreement. What about it?"
"I know what it is. What I'm talking about is this loan agreement. Why do I have to pay you back?"
He sounded distraught and kept yelling.
"This is crazy. This is not right."
He was referring to the part about repaying the loan between spouses that happened during the marriage. It meant that he was asked to return the money I paid on his behalf.
"This is bullshit. You decided to do it out of your goodwill, didn't you? Why are you digging up the past?"
What do you mean? I did it as your wife. If we divorce, that's a different story.
Then the regret you mentioned is...
He just realized it at that moment. When he asked me for a divorce, I immediately thought of making him repay in my head. I dealt with insurance and investments, so I got to speak to different kinds of customers in my profession. Sometimes I heard about divorce issues or inheritances. Thanks to them, I had a few contacts of experienced attorneys whom I consulted right away. The total amount, including the interest I paid on his behalf, was a little over $300,000. I was determined to have him pay me back precisely that. That was all I asked for. He must have realized the seriousness of the matter by my unwavering attitude, and by seeing the name of locally famous attorney on the document. He thought he could get rid of his wife without adding me in the first place. He was so ludicrous.
You know that I don't have much money.
Well, then why don't you sell the store to fund it?
If I do that, I won't have anything left. You're a Satan.
You're only 55, right? You could still find a job if you wanted to.
Give me a break.
My conversation with him was not making any sense at all. I wanted to hang up the phone right away, but there was one last thing I wanted to check. By the way, how's it going with your new bride-to-be?
That's none of your business.
I burst out in laughter at his brusque attitude. True that. It sounds like you're going through a lot. Good luck. I was about to hang up the phone.
Wait a minute. I've decided not to marry her. We can start over.
For some reason, he pleaded with me. I yelled my last words at him and hung up the phone. Start over? Don't kid yourself. I don't want you. I had been married to such a man for 20 years. I wondered if I looked more ridiculous than him in the eyes of others. I truly did respect him until the divorce came up. It was because I had watched him work so hard for the store and for his customers. I wanted to support him. 20 years later, I realized that he was just a fool. The remarriage he mentioned was just his self-indulgence. It started when he innocently flirted with a teenage university student who worked part-time.
You are so cute, Melissa. Will you be my wife?
She also played along and jokingly replied, Well, I would think about it if you let me be a full-time housewife. The truth was that he thought she was serious. The idea of marrying a man who was almost 40 years senior was nothing more than a joke to her. Of course, she was horrified to learn of his seriousness. When he persistently pressed her to marry him, her parents had to intervene and place a restraining order against him. When I read the report from the private investigation, I laughed so hard that I hyperventilated. When he started coming home late, I thought he was working hard, not knowing anything. Instead, it was the opposite. He was often hitting on young girls at his favorite bars and strip joints. He made a fool of himself by saying things like,
I'm surprisingly popular with young girls. I'm a salesman, so I have this easy to talk to aura and get along with them. And I'm told that I look younger. Don't you think so?
The girls apparently cringed at his comments. He no longer had any use for an old wife like me, and saw me only as a cash dispenser. However, his misconceived image of himself was hilarious. He was not taken seriously by anyone, and became somewhat like a stalker, who almost got in trouble with the police. Maybe it would have been better if he had cheated on me. Too bad he couldn't even find a mistress to have an affair with. Anyway, the reason why he aimed to marry a young girl was that his friend Matt had a grandchild. The story Matt told me was this.
As soon as he saw my grandchild, he said he wanted to have a child himself. I scolded him and said that he shouldn't say such a thing. You had been paying his debt for him. I was very harsh with him, but I had no idea he had done such a thing.
He was absolutely mortified. I'm glad I didn't spend my golden years with that man, I muttered to myself. My divorce was finalized. Since the division of property between us was not clear-cut, he had room to negotiate for his own benefit. However, he gave up just because my attorney was well known. I wondered how such a gutless person had managed to stay in business all that time. He ended up selling the store to pay me back. Fortunately, just before he sold the store, his employees had abandoned lands, so no misfortune befell them. A lot of customers frowned at him for giving up on the business that was passed on to him by his parents. When they found out that the reason was to pay back his ex-wife, they were in a state of shock. When he demanded a divorce, he got what he deserved. It was a true story, but sounded like a comedy, which spread throughout the community. Even if he hadn't sold the store, the bad publicity would have affected his business. It was probably a good thing that he sold it before he went bankrupt. The money from the sale was not enough to pay me back. He continues to work part-time jobs to pay me back to this day. Sometimes I receive messages from him.
It was all my fault. Can we get back together? I was crazy back then because Matt was showing off his grandkid.
Unfortunately, even after I block his number, he keeps calling from different phones.
If you contact your ex-wife any further, we'll file a restraining order.
I've had my attorney give him a warning. Then the calls have stopped. As usual, he's terrified of the attorney. By the way, guess what I do for work now? I'm a marriage counselor. Just as turned 50 and wanted to try a new job, my friend opened a matchmaking business. I quit my previous job and joined her. While helping singletons to find a match, I also provide advice on financial issues between couples, how to decide on insurance, and so on. It was a hit, and the number of members quickly increased. The couples, who want to have a frank and thorough discussion from the beginning, have appreciated our unique service. I've been through a lot, and I don't want them to make the same mistakes I did. Although my salary is a little lower than before, I enjoy helping others be happy every day. I got my happiness after getting rid of my ex-husband. Today, I'm doing my best to be a bridge to someone else's happiness.